government building houses, I mean, there are so many planning permissions there unbuilt. So you have to look to the construction sector as well. Why aren't you building the permission that you have? Anyway, the government is focusing quite rightly, I suppose, on the supply side when it comes to housing. How can we get more units built? But some say they'll never solve the problems by looking at the supply side only. They've got to somehow look at the demand and reduce the demand. How would you do that?
Well, Pat, the country's population has increased significantly in the last number of years. And in the middle of a housing crisis, the government has not matched the growth in population with housing delivery. So it's easy to see why this crisis is getting worse and why house prices are skyrocketing. And Pat, in the last 3 years in Ireland, our population has increased by just over 208,000. Yet in those same 3 years, between 2022 and 2024, only 92,706 new homes were built. In fact, real estate analysis by Savills shows that between 2015 and 2023, population growth exceeded new home delivery by almost 4 to 1, while actually Ireland's population growth is 5 times the rate of the EU average. And surely it's just simple mathematics, Pat, to say that our housing problems cannot be addressed when the population is growing so fast. And I've been speaking to economist David W. Higgins. He says the number of work permits being issued here is increasing each year. And he believes the government have to decrease employment permits because they cannot meet the supply side when it comes to housing.
Between 2016 and 2022, those are the last two censuses that we had, the population in Ireland grew by 387,000, but 220,000 was net inward migration. So migration tends to outweigh the picture when it comes to our population growth. Now, when it comes to housing, for every house that we built, there were 4 extra people coming into the country. So population growth has way outpaced the pace of construction of new homes in this country.
Do you think there needs to be more focus on demand if the government is going to solve the housing crisis then?
I think so. So what I've called for is for us to be smart about this. There needs to be no talk of, shutting up borders or anything that's too radical. It's about finding a balance between the growth in new supply that we have and the demands that are coming on extra each year. I talk a lot about the work permit system. I think that's it should be recognised as a key route that we add extra housing demand into the country. So work permits in the pre-COVID years, we used to issue less than 10,000 in 2016. That then grew to 16,000 permits in 2019. But in years 22, 23 and 24, we've been up around the 40,000 mark. It means that because the labour market has been so hot after COVID, we've seen firms, companies hiring abroad, hiring outside the EU actually, to fill gaps in the labour market. And while that is beneficial for those firms, it then means that you just need a whole bunch of extra houses to be able to accommodate that.
Looking at the housing figures, experts are saying that the government will do well to build 25,000 new homes this year. Do you think inward migration will have to be lowered if there's any chance of matching housing supply with demand?
I think so. We know from housing commencements that, as you say, we're probably not going to meet housing targets this year. But we have a time problem. We have a problem of we want to deliver affordable rents and affordable house prices for people right here, right now. We won't get the supply on board in time. So I think a stopgap measure should be looking at easing the demand side with smart policies that tackle the high levels of immigration that we have.
It's interesting listening to that conversation. I mean, limit the number of visas. So what do? Send your taxi drivers home, close down hotels, close down cafes, close down nursing homes that depend on the migrant population.
That's the difficulty, Pat, because if you need people to come here for the labour market to keep the economy going. But at the same time, those people coming here to work also need somewhere to live. So
I just thought his thing, the firms will do well. They have their workers. But it's not really, it's about the whole economy running. And we need migrant labour. Another stat which you gave us there, 208,600 people coming in and 92,706 units built. But I mean, it's not one house per person, and it should never be. I mean, the single occupancy housing is not really very efficient from a point of view of giving people a roof over their heads.
No, it's not, but I suppose we do need to build more family homes. But at the same time too, Pat, for people that are single, living on their own now as they get older seems almost impossible in this country.
Anyway, from what we've heard, the housing situation doesn't sound like it's going to improve anytime soon.
No, it doesn't. We heard this week, Pat, of the impacts of this housing emergency all week. A younger generation choosing to emigrate because they do not see a future house, low supply in the second-hand home market, which is resulting in prices skyrocketing and creating bidding wars, while rents are becoming increasingly unaffordable for people. And unfortunately, Pat, things do not look like they'll improve anytime soon. The programme for government is committed to delivering more than 300,000 houses between this year and the end of 2030. That's an average of over 50,000 per year. But as we heard there, it looks very, very unlikely that the government will reach that 50,000 target any year in the next 5 years. So yeah, it looks increasingly unlikely that things will get any better. And Pat, these people in Dublin told me they've no faith in the government to sort out housing.
They're having a hope. They're having a hope to fix it. It's gone too bad. They let it go too bad. They'll never catch up.
What do you think are the main causes?
Population getting too big. You know?
I don't think the government have done a great job on the housing situation. But I suppose for me personally, I look at the opposition. I don't know if they could do any better of a job, to be totally honest, as well. So I don't think the current government are doing great, but I don't know what alternative there is there. I haven't heard anything from the opposition that would lead me to have faith in them either doing a good job in housing.
What do you think's the biggest cause?
It's obviously population. There's a supply and demand.
Haven't gotten off to a great start, and they should have gone into this with a very strong plan, given that's what they won the election on. So no, it's not a great start.
Do you think they have a plan?
It doesn't look like they have much of a one, and it doesn't look like they have a different plan. And I think they definitely needed to treat this as a crisis situation and really go back to the drawing board and put all their focus into it. But so far, there's no signs of that.
What do you think is the biggest cause of the housing crisis?
I think there's probably lots of different things at play. There's obviously a lack of building. There's the cost of building. There's general inflation. There's issues with planning. There's issues with infrastructure. But I think the biggest number one thing is having the will and the focus and putting the attention and the spotlight on it to say this is something we're going to tackle and finding different ways to do it.
And that's what has failed so far, Barry, isn't it? Different ways to do it. No innovation really in providing housing.
Yeah, maybe they do have to do something radical, but as that woman said, their infrastructure, looking at water infrastructure, looking at planning, maybe getting councils more involved around the country might be another option, Pat.
Rather than building more homes, why can't they have incentives to convert above shops, unused office spaces, etc.? Use what we have before building more new homes and housing estates that are on top of each other. Lots of comments about the densification of parts of the country, but it's interesting, trying to do above the shop with the building regs, virtually impossible.
Yeah.
Very cumbersome.
Very cumbersome. And look, I know it would improve, city centres and town centres if you had people living there, but I think that's easier said than done. And one thing we didn't point out there, Pat, is the fact that, to reach 50,000 homes a year, we simply don't have the workers in construction, and that's another thing.
Many of them fled the country after the collapse.
Yeah.
So there. Barry White, who authored that entire series this week. Barry, thank you very much for joining us.